welcome to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and this is the last parts of the 3-day hearing that we're going over for Delphi. This would be the last day, so that it took place on August 1st. And we're going to go in we're going to go through August 1st in two parts. And we're going to go through, so in today's part one, it's going to be the state's witnesses, and then for the second part, we're going to go over the defense's witnesses. So, in case you forgot, we did go over the motion and eliminate on this channel. It is basically the state's motion to eliminate basically everything that the defense wants to bring into the trial. Basically anything that they can use to defend themselves. The state wanted to eliminate, and we know now that Judge Gull approved or allowed this motion basically in full. So everything that they're asking to eliminate is going to be eliminated in this upcoming trial, which completely handicaps the defense. So anything talk of Odinism, anything talk about other suspects that were interviewed, anything about the geofence data, which is the state's tool to place people in a location, in like a roundabout location in a certain time. It's their own tool, but the defense can't bring it in to prove Rick Allen's phone wasn't in that area, which is exculpatory evidence. So it's just that none of this makes sense. So here's the motion in limine hearing, August 1st, 2024. Let's get into it. Please hit the like button as we get started. We have Nicholas McClelland, James Luttrell, and Stacy Diener for the prosecution. For the defense, we have Bradley Rosie, Andrew Baldwin, and Jennifer Auger, I think is how it's pronounced. All right. So we're going to go through this, and let's see what reasons the state is trying to push forward as to why Richard Allen can't use his own defense, which this is part of the problem. If you are a defendant and you bring forth defense like your defense. This happened in Karen Reed too, where in motions and things prior to trial, they gave away their defense, which was somebody else did this, it wasn't us, which is good if that is the case and you're trying to push this narrative that it wasn't your client. However, it gives the state the opportunity to do something really underhanded like this, to go to the judge and say, I don't want them to talk about any of the things that they've been putting in their motions from up until now. So it's ridiculous that she allowed it, in my opinion, or at least everything that she allowed. All right, so the person that is going to be doing the cross is James Luttrell, who I am not sure who that is. Actually, well, I know it's one of the prosecutors, but I don't know much about him. All right, so he calls Major Pat Cicero, who is sworn in, and Luttrell questions Cicero. Would you state your name, sir? My name is Patrick G. Cicero, and he spells it. And where are you employed? I'm employed with the LaPorte County Sheriff's Office. How long have you been there? I've been there for a little over 24 years. What's your rank? Current rank is a major, and I'm with the administration. And have you, in your career with the LaPorte County Sheriff's Department, worked investigations? Yes, prior to being promoted to the rank of major, I was a detective in our bureau as a chief of detectives for over 20 years. You were the chief of detectives for the LaPorte County Department? Yes, sir. And do you have any specialized areas in crime scene investigation? Yes, I specialized in, I can't say that word on and you do in BLOOD stain pattern analysis, crime scene reconstruction, forensic entomology. Ooh, that's the bugs. That's fun. I used to work when I was younger. Little side note about me. When I was in high school and early college, I was working at a pest control company, like answering the phone, scheduling things and stuff. And I got really into forensic entomology there, like talking about the bugs and how that can relate to when the blowfly studies and stuff, how it can relate to time of year and when people, it can give you a good, accurate time frame of when that body was, how long that body has been there. So I've always been really interested in this stuff. Anyways, all right. So crime scene reconstruction, forensic entomology for the practitioner, as far as collections and the investigative approach, as well as just overall crime scene investigation, sir. Do you have any certifications in that field? Yes, I am certified in the state of Indiana as a crime scene investigator. I'm also on the certification board for the state of Indiana, setting standards and making sure that investigators are certified throughout the state. And therefore, I assume, you've been to specialized schools in BLOOD stain pattern analysis? Yes, over my 20 years in the Detective Bureau, I attended numerous courses, basic, advanced courses, courses in crime scene reconstruction where the stain patterns and analysis is incorporated with that. Individual courses on certain topics in stain pattern analysis as well. I would say um, he's by far not even close to being an expert, doing a couple courses, and even if they're advanced courses, doing some courses and uh, just a few, courses in reconstruction when it's involved in it, it's part of the reconstruction. You need to like specialize in this. So, and even then, I think that this is like junk science, the blood stain pattern analysis, because um, it's sometimes it's subjective, uh, how a stain might look, and the person that is analyzing it may say it has this kind of characteristic where it does. I don't know. It's very non-scientific because it is based on the expert's visual analysis. So that's not really scientific. But anyways, all right. And are those courses that require you to pass tests and to show your proficiency? Yes. So they're not just attending a conference. No, but I attended conferences as well. Do you do training? Do you teach the stain pattern analysis and crime scene construction training? Yes. Okay, so he teaches it. But I wonder how expert his analysis or his expertise really is. How knowing that he only took some courses. I don't know. Like it doesn't. I don't know if there's any kind of certification in this, but or how you would go about doing that. But I don't know. And different police stations may do different things, different techniques for their stain pattern analysis. So it's hard to say, if this guy's been doing it for 20 years, he could be doing it all wrong if, their protocol and procedure isn't quite right. So it's hard to say that he could be an expert in this. But, anyways, let's move on. I'll shut up about his expertise. All right. So, where were we? He attended courses, training as well. He also teaches it. Yes, I teach at the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy for crime scene investigators. Again, that goes back to how much of an expert is he, and is he teaching the right things to the next investigators in line to do the job? You know what I'm saying? Like the cops are usually, they have a degree. If they have a degree, it's often in criminal justice. And the expertise that they need to be doing like the crime scene reconstruction, that would take totally different, physics, mechanics, those kinds of things. So many other kinds of classes, scientific classes that are different than, criminal justice, which is more of a like social sciences, if that makes sense. I'm trying to like decipher. So We saw in the Karen Reed trial, for instance, many of their experts were law enforcement. So the forensic data analysis, that was a trooper who may or may not have some corrupt things going on with him because he didn't find 32,000 uh, text messages between Sandra Birchmore and her perpetrator, the one who took her life and groomed her whole life. So um, there's issues with having law enforcement being your experts as well. So, maybe they have a vested interest in protecting more law enforcement. So there's a whole bunch of issues with your law enforcement using law enforcement as experts. Additionally, Trooper Paul in the Karen Reed case, obviously a trooper, law enforcement, and was not educated in physics and science and stuff, as he calls it. And that creates a problem. And then his theory of what happened in the Karen Reed case is completely flawed. So, anyways, and then you teach, that law enforcement teaches more, and they're doing it the wrong way the whole time. I'm just saying, like this is a problem with law enforcement experts. Anyways, I've taught at Rensselaer College. I don't know if I'm saying that right. As the basic and advanced courses. I'm slated to teach at the National Forensic Academy. I teach at a forensic academy already for the last 18 years in forensic entomology, but I'm slated to, so he's taught entomology, which is the science behind the bugs, and when their larva hatches, how they reproduce, their life cycles. Those are the things that you're going to be studying in forensic entomology. But I'm slated to this October to go back for stain pattern analysis as well. All right. So what is that academy that you're talking about? The National Forensic Academy is in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. It's through the University of Tennessee. It's a 10-week intensive course at the university, and we teach investigators throughout the country. How long have you been involved in this stain pattern analysis investigation? Approximately 20 years. Okay. You've testified as an expert before in that area? Yes, I believe this would be the 31st or 32nd time. Only in LaPorte County? So he's been doing this for 20 years and he's only testified 30 times. I don't think that shows that that shows that he hasn't been used as an expert very often in his 20 something years. So only in LaPorte County? No. Aside from today, no, sir. I've testified in Lawrence County. I've testified in Lake Porter counties. I believe I testified in Jasper County as well. It's late and we're all a little tired, but would you give us a brief explanation of what stain pattern interpretation is? Sure. Stain pattern analysis is a field of study which relies on the fact that BLOOD is a fluid, and as such, it adheres to the physical laws. Therefore, it is a repeatable. Stains are repeatable. They're testable. They're measurable. An analyst examines the stain patterns within a pattern, specifically looking at the size, shape, and location of the scene, the distribution, the volume of the liquid. Ultimately, the goal is to determine the origins that gave rise to the blood stains. Were you asked to assist the prosecution in this prosecution of the homicides of Abby Williams and Liberty German? He says, yes, I was, sir. And when were you asked? February 12th, 2024, so of this year. And I first had a conversation, you and I first had a conversation about that time. Is that correct? Around that time, I believe so, sir. What materials did you examine to prepare to give an opinion and to provide analysis on the stain patterns in the crime scene? I received electronic files of many individual files of photographs from, I believe, 5 or 6 different officers, investigators. I received lab reports. I received the post-mortem exam reports, diagrams associated with the case. Showing you 8 photographs, I'm going to ask if you recognize these and if these would be photographs that you relied upon in your examination. Therefore, the record. It's exhibits 30 through 37. Yes, sir. I recognize these photographs. And were these photographs provided to you when you requested a number of photographs in this case? Yes. Did you receive a lot more than these 8 photographs? Yes, sir. Many files of photographs. And you said you reviewed both crime scene photographs as well as photographs of the autopsies. Yes. And the various reports related to the crime scene and the autopsies, is that correct? That is correct, sir. Mr. Luttrell says, only asking that they kept under seal. He's trying to admit these into the photographs and evidence. No objection from the defense, and the court admits them under seal. Mr. Luttrell continues to assist the court. He says something. She says, okay. These 2 don't have stickers on them, but they have handwritten numbers that correspond with the courts. Yes, sir, stickers. Da, 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 da. So I apologize. Yes, sir. Did you actually go to the scene as well? I did. And were you accompanied by retired FBI agent Rich Davies? Yes. And did the 2 of you, were you given time there to review and see the scene yourself? Yes, I was, sir. And was that helpful to you in understanding the photographs and understanding the reports that you had evaluated? Yes, it was. And did you physically examine items of evidence? Yes, I examined clothing. Were these the clothing what clothing did you examine? The clothing I examined was the clothing that was discovered with Abby Williams. I want to have you describe and will not do it in a terrific detail. Sometimes, like, when people are just talking, it throws me off my game. Sorry. All right, so I want to have you describe, and will not go into terrific detail, but I want you to describe the BLOOD that was documented at the scene as you saw it on the photographs, beginning with on the tree. And as you want to look at and reflect and refer to the photographs, if you would state the number for the record as to what. Sure. If you want to begin by what is Exhibit 30 and what does that show us? Exhibit 30 is kind of an overall mid-range photograph of the tree as well as the decedents that are in the background. In the foreground, near the bottom of the photograph, there is a stain on the ground that I observed and categorized as a culmination of BLOOD that would be consistent with pooling. It would be very noticeable if, the surface was not forested floor, but it was large enough and it appeared voluminous enough that it would be consistent with a pool of BLOOD stains. And so when we refer later in the photographs to BLOOD on a tree, that tree is pictured in Exhibit 30. It is, sir. It's in the foreground? Yes, sir. Okay. What does 31 show us? 31 shows us a more close-up photograph of the floor, the forested floor, leaf litter with stains on them. And that's also 31. Is it a close-up of what's pictured in a portion of Exhibit 30? It's not a easily viewed as 30, but I know where the general location is in the photograph. It's easily viewed on a computer due to printing quality, but it's associated with the areas that I observed in front of the tree, almost like, I believe it was like a little bit northeast of the tree. Northeast. Okay, Exhibit 32, what does that show you? This is another photograph of the tree, a different angle that the photographer took. You can see the decedents in the background. It is of the tree more on the north side of the tree and showing stains upon the tree. And the next is 33, I believe. Yes, sir. This would be, again, the tree, a more closer shot of the tree. It's stains, I believe, on the more northern part of the tree, more of the same. And what is the next 35? This is the tree again with a scale. I'm sorry, this is 34. I'm sorry, 34. It's a picture of the tree with the scale. It's scaling out the BLOOD stain, specifically the stain in the center, which I had described as an upside down L shape. Did you see references in the examination or in reviewing reports of a tree noted as with the letter F? I did, sir. See any reference to that in the materials that you reviewed? Yes, sir. And we'll get to the why in a moment, but does that appear to you to be a symbol F on the tree? No, it appears like an upside down L to me. In terms of its configuration? Yes. Okay. What's the next photograph? What number is it and which that would be photograph 35. This would be the photograph of the F upside down L without the scale and but this time it's the discoloration of the stain was due to an additive or a chemical reagent called crystal violet. Have you used this chemical before yourself? Many times. And what is the purpose of using that chemical? It's to enhance the visualization of BLOOD stains. The actual chemical will basically pigment or change the color for more easy viewing. And is it your understanding that the crime scene officers returned in the daylight the following day and applied those chemicals to the tree and took the photograph at that time? Yes, that's my understanding. Did that help you to appreciate and more fully understand the configuration of the stain pattern of the tree? It did, as I can understand why individuals would say this looks like an F. What's missing to make it an F would be the lower horizontal bar to make it an F. There's not one there, so that's why I called it an upside down L. Had you noted on the numerous photographs that you reviewed of the crime scene and perhaps even your trip there yourself this spring, but did you note any reddish tint or pinkish tint to the bark on that tree at certain locations? Yes, I did. I come in some of the crime scene photographs, does that in effect provide a visual distortion of what is on the tree? Yes, it could. What's the next photograph after the chemical applied photograph? It would be photograph number 36. And what does 36 show us? It shows the decedents. I believe the photographer is facing the camera towards the north. So the decedents, you know what? Let me put up my trigger warning just in case. Whoops, where's my little one? There, sensitive content we're talking about because we are talking about now the crime scene and what's there. So I should put that up. All right, so where was I? It shows the decedents. I believe the photographer is facing the camera towards the north, so the decedents are now in a different location. On the left side of the photograph, there's a large accumulation of BLOOD, which would be consistent with a pooling. So we have never heard of pooling until now because we all were wondering the uh, where their lives were actually taken because it looked like the crime scene had been staged. There wasn't pooling in the area where the girls were located, but apparently there's pooling in other areas around the crime scene. So that would make sense that they did get moved from wherever the crime happened and then their bodies were moved. All right. And did we get to the end? Is there a 37? 37 is the last one. I'm sorry. I'm on 36. Okay, go to 37 then. Yes, sir. What is that? This is a topographical type of photograph. I believe the investigators were on a ladder or some type, and you can clearly see again that discoloration, which would be to the west of the decedents, especially west of Abby Williams and again the decedents, laying supine on the forest floor. Major Cicero, I'd like you to give some detail about the stain that you saw on the tree. Would you describe its approximate size and distribution of the stain that you saw as you saw it? Yes, sir. On the northeastern part of the tree, where the symbol, again, I would describe it as an upside down L, we'll focus on that area. The overall pattern was, I believe, like 3.4 by 7 inches approximately. The pattern consisted of several different BLOOD stain patterns, not traced, but transfer stains. I observed approximately 6 individual spatters, then more on the upper left portion of the area of the pattern. So like somebody took their finger or a stick or something to do it, but they had to like go dipping back into like whatever they were wherever they were holding the liquid. So I observed approximately 6 individual spatters and then more on the upper left portion of the area of the pattern. Again, transfer stains to the left of the upside down L, of course, and the L all consistent with transfer. And what do you mean by transfer? Transfer is the definition for the terminology is a BLOODY object that comes in contact with another object and transferring over. So like finger or stick, like I said. All right. Or, a weapon, the weapon that they use, something that they could use to make that symbol. All right, so question, and I believe the court is well aware of some of these terms, but would you diminish or distinguish for us what you mean by spatter versus the transfer that you saw? Well, spatter consists of individual droplets of the BLOOD that had energy was applied to the BLOOD to break it up. And then the target surface, being the tree, had impacted with tree, and that is spatter. Usually, spatter is in the realm of 1 to 4 millimeters in size. In this case, the sizes were 1 to 3, if I remember correctly, approximately 1 to 3 millimeters in size. Also, one other additional pattern that's referred to as flow was also observed in the vertical portion of the L, the upside down L, whereas there was a voluminous amount of BLOOD to create flow from gravity that was after the transfer was made. So there was BLOOD at the base of the tree or near the base of the tree? Yes, in my analysis, I defined or identified 3 areas of stains. Of course, I just described the one on the northeastern portion of the tree. One, one more north, or basically to the right, approximately 4 feet from the base of a tree, I observed more transfer stains. As a matter of fact, those transfer stains, a couple areas of the transfer stains were quite voluminous. You can see with the darker red, darker brown application where it's dried. Directly below that, those stains was another set or was another series of transfer stains approximately 2 feet, a little more than 2 feet from the base of the tree as well. Was there a section on the ground a distance from the tree where there was a large pool of BLOOD that was documented by photographs? Yes, the large pool of or pooling accumulation was more to the south of the tree, and I believe maybe, excuse me, maybe a few feet to the west of Abby's foot. Could you point to that area? The pooling for the court and identify which photograph we're looking at. In Exhibit 36, the pooling, Your Honor, would be right here. And he indicates it. In Exhibit 37, Your Honor, the pooling would be right there. In between the BLOOD at the near the base of the tree and the pooling, was there any documented BLOOD in between those 2 points? Yes, there were 2 other areas, according to the reports and the diagram, where there were 2 smaller areas of they'd be when I say very small, I'd say just smaller than the large one observed in 36 and 37. That could be considered accumulations. It lacks drips or other descriptives that we use for analysis. And when we look at the fluid and provide with a definition, but these areas again were much smaller and depending upon the surface, the soil, and the leaf litter. If there was a tile floor, a smooth, non porous, it would be large enough that it would be a smaller pooling. Now, let's go to your analysis of the BLOOD on the body of Libby German. Okay. Did you study those photographs and read the descriptions and reporting, but did you yourself study those photographs of her body? That was a really easy way to say it. Yes. And you had numerous dozens of photographs of that? I did, yes. Would you give just a brief overall description of where? Well, let me approach it this way. Beginning at you examined the lab reports that were submitted in this case as well. Is that right? I did. Specifically DNA? Yes, sir. And what did you find in terms of the scene at the tree, the base of the tree, the smaller amount away from the base and then the large pool whose BLOOD was identified with those portions. All the BLOOD according to the DNA reports originated from Libby. And then he repeats, Libby German. And the only BLOOD identified as Abby's was right there, either on her body or very adjacent to it. And that was a question. And our expert says yes. So I guess that's correct. So there was some of Abby's DNA, just very small portion of it. Would you describe for the court what you can discern about the movement of Libby's body from the tree to where she was found? Yes. So observing the small accumulations that would indicate that Libby was mobile at the time of the shedding of the fluid occurred. Likewise, the stains consistent with the transfer was observed on the bottom of her foot, indicating that she was standing at some point. So all the BLOOD on the tree, um, and all of it that's to the northeast of the tree, the areas, again, smaller areas, two areas noted by the investigators, and the large pooling, all LGs. Likewise, LG's body was dragged through the larger accumulation, which was noted by the pictures. So she was dragged through it. Ugh, this is heart-wrenching. You can see the stains from the accumulation to where her final location is, but also the transfers of it to her, the back of her leg and her calf. In examining the photographs of the conditions of LG's body, are you convinced that she was at some point dragged through, pulled through that pool of BLOOD to the final resting point near the tree where she was photographed? Yes. And her left arm is raised up? Yes. And the position of her left arm, is that consistent with someone pulling her body from the area where the pooling was through the pool to the point next to the tree? Yes, it's consistent. I want to talk for a little bit about the BLOOD on Abby's body. Well, first, before we leave LG or Libby, is it your belief that Libby was moving after she received at least her first initial injury? Yes. And you say that because of what? Again, the small accumulations of fluid that were observed at different locations within the immediate scene would indicate that she is in those positions, bleeding for it to get on the ground and accumulate in that fashion. So she was stopping in certain positions where it could accumulate. Is it also apparent that she was at least sitting in a seated position at some point? Is what he should have said. Based upon the stains that were observed on her right thigh, there is what is referred to as projected pattern observed on the thigh. And a projected pattern, it's a Basically, stains or BLOD under pressure that is being ejected out of the injury. In this case, being her neck, which coincides with what I observed on the leg. The stains ejected onto her leg and subsequent flow patterns were made flowing to the inner thigh of her leg. Rough. Okay. If you guys need to take a break or um, need to get yourselves in a better mindset, I recommend it. I recommend meditation. I recommend, you know, doing something good for you that makes that gives you joy and because honestly, we don't do enough things to give ourselves joy. So do something that gives you joy when if you need to step away from this now or afterwards because this is a little rough. Um, yeah, take a moment for yourself today at some point today. All right. So, and that evidence itself confirms to you that she was seating at some point with her head above her thigh. Yes, in order for that projection to be there, the target surface has to be present, and the most logical way for that to happen would be that the injury itself would have had to have been over the thigh. We can tell this mostly because of the flow patterns. The flow patterns were straight down the leg, so the best explanation for the particular pattern would be that she was most likely seated at the time. Let's talk about Abby for a moment. What evidence do you believe that she was not moving upon receiving her one wound? Does she not move upon receiving that wound at all? She was in that general location the entire time. I mean, there may have been some movement, but generally, it's right where she was found where she's come to her fatal injuries. And does the evidence on her body, well, what does the evidence on her body tell you? The stain on her body observed flow patterns on AW's face, which were not consistent with her final resting, meaning that either her head was turned to the side at one point, maybe her body was turned at one point. The stains were limited really to the back and the clothing where saturation occurred. And saturation is where it accumulates and soaks into an absorbent material, carpeting, clothing, the ground, whatnot. The saturation, the sweatshirt was so saturated, also went in onto the forested floor, trickled to the right of her as well, where a pooling or accumulation occurred as well. So the most movement of her upper torso or and head were maybe, let me ask it this way, the only movement from her body that you could discern from the stains was that would have been a movement of her head from one side to another. Potentially, yes. Maybe her upper body was lifted up at one point to create the flows that went over her chin. Because our bodies can't articulate so much, I can't, say exactly what occurred, but again, the liquid is a fluid. Fluids will flow towards the least resistance, and based upon the flow patterns upon her face and chin, it is consistent with some movement. Liberty had a significant amount of BLOD on her, both hands, correct? Yes. Given how many violent crime scenes, let me put it this way, how many scenes where you have been to in an investigative capacity? Hundreds, sir. I don't know. It's about 20 plus homicides. I've been an officer for 28 years and I've been to many homicides. Given the wound to her neck, did that seem likely that she had a significant amount of BLOD on both hands? Absolutely, especially the injuries and the internal position being that both carotid arteries and the jugular vein, we're talking about Libby, correct? Yes. Both carotid arteries and the jugular vein were compromised. There would be massive blood loss as a result of that. What about the hands? What have you learned in your investigation about injuries and to the neck and hands? Yeah, I believe it's a natural reaction, and you're going to be putting your hands on that BLOOD, touching portions of your body that is now being soaked as well. The fact that we know that LG was mobile and her DNA was flowing down her shoulders, her neck, it would be very logical that she's touching those areas as well. And she had a voluminous amount of it on her arms and her hands as well. So that would coincide with that. But Abby did not, did she? Abby did not have any BLOOD on her hands, nor did she have any on the sleeves of her sweatshirt, the dark colored sweatshirt she was wearing. In terms of, there's been some testimony, some documentation in this case referencing whether AW was redressed after receiving her injuries. Can you tell the court what your opinion is about whether or not, in terms of the clothing she was wearing when found, a large dark sweatshirt, a tank top, the gray sports bra, the black bra, so remember she was wearing both bras, which is bizarre, and Libby was not wearing anything. Were those items on her at the time that she received her injury? Yes. And how could you say that? So, based upon several factors. In examining the clothing, examining the photographs, there was heavy saturation in the clothing. You could see mostly on the back and the shoulders and the neckline. And this is just the outer hoodie sweatshirt that she was wearing. In reviewing her torso, her pink sleeveless shirt, it was a gray colored sports brassiere and a black colored sports brassiere. I'm sorry, just a regular brassiere. There was no liquid found located on any one of those other than the neckline or the shoulders. So the best explanation is that she's wearing it at the time. If she was dressed after the fact, we would expect to see a lot of it transferred to the portions of the lower portions of the shirt, the sports brassiere, the brassiere. I don't know why he's saying the full word brassiere. And especially her abdomen as she's being dressed. There, the sticks and limbs that were near or on the bodies, you saw the photographs showing those, correct? Yes. And did you, by visiting the scene and also examining photographs, observe any indication that a large limb near Libby's body, and even the smaller sticks would assist in concealing those bodies from view? Yes. So he thinks it's to assist in concealing them? Okay. We're going to hear from another expert who thinks that they're runes or they have some kind of meaning to the perpetrator or perpetrators, and they weren't meant to hide the bodies. So that's going to be testimony that we're going to hear that differs from this. If someone were looking from across the creek towards the direction where the girls were found, would those sticks and that large limb assist in concealing their body from someone looking in that direction? Objection, Your Honor, Ms. Auger says. It's okay. Ms. Auger, Major Cicero, right? Yeah, it's fine. What? Who's answering it's fine? Is that the court saying it's fine? I don't know who's saying yeah, and it's fine. Okay. Ms. Auger says, is an expert, Mr. Cicero, right, is an expert in BLOOD spatter analysis. What someone may or may not have seen across the creek would be beyond his area of expertise. And the court says, Mr. Luttrell, who responds saying, he visited the scene, Your Honor. He looked at it from a variety of perspectives. He looked at it from the vantage point, maybe not the specific location, but from the angle of someone across the creek. He was on the crime scene side of the creek, but he looked at it from the same angle, and I believe he can give opinions. If Dr. Perlmutter can give her opinion about a crime scene, certainly Major Cicero could. Ms. Auger says, Your Honor, may I ask a preliminary a preliminary question? The court says yes. She continues. Excuse me. All right. She continues on. Major Cicero, you were never at the location where the bodies were found on February 13th, 2017, correct? That is correct, ma'am. Your involvement didn't come into place until I think April of 2024, February 2024. I was at the scene in April. Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you. And so you were never in the position to see what you could or couldn't see with leaves on or off the tree or anything like that, or differences in topography or anything like that in the 7 years between the time the girls were had their lives taken and the time that you went to the crime scene. He says, correct. Visage says, Your Honor, I think that this would be complete speculation. We would object. The court says, anything else? Mr. Luttrell says, it's not speculation at all, but I can, and yeah, I think it is, but I can ask further questions that may clear up the matter. Please do, says the court. Continuing on, he says, You observed dozens and dozens of photographs taken from various locations by the crime scene techs showing from various distances the scene as it existed before the bodies were moved. Is that right? That is correct. But he never visited the scene. So how can you know? And did you see, from the benefit of those photographs and from your own visit to the scene, to give it that further context, did you see any advantage or any effect to cover up or make it more difficult to see the bodies from those sticks and limbs that were present? Yes. Visage says, Your Honor. Answer, oh. Visage says, I would just renew my objection. I'm sorry, Major. He says, That's okay. I was just waiting for you. So she says, It's his fault. Overruled. I'll give you some latitude, she says. He says, Yes, my observations in April as it pertains to topography, foliage from, leaves, there were no leaves that I observed on the trees. It's my understanding and observations of the crime scene photos that there were also no leaves in February of 2017. It's Indiana. We know when we start to get leaves. My view in April, and it would be logical to conclude that the views in February of 2017 and my views of April of 2024 would be similar in that I could see clearly across the river, or I'm sorry, the creek, to the other side of the bank. I could see the path. I could see a path in the forest going up to the hill. So, in comparison to the scenes, though the topography may have been different somewhat, and the vegetation and the tree bark would be different over 7 years. The I could I could still see across, and yes, I believe that especially the larger limb, could have been utilized to conceal especially the light colored skin of the person who was unclothed from across the bank. How is, how is that coming in? Like that, this just shows how corrupt and biased Judge Gull is, because she's like, yeah, whatever. They can talk, these experts can testify to things that aren't anything that they're experts in. And it's infuriating to see this. All right, so he continues on. Major Cicero, did you take the photographs that you've shown, plus the dozens and dozens of other photographs, and the reporting by the crime scene investigators, the measurements they took, and I'm talking now specifically about the stain on the tree, and conduct an experiment yourself on testing a hypothesis about how the stain was applied to that tree? Yes. And this is what we'll wrap up with. Blah, blah, blah. Need a break. My tongue gets tired after a while. All right, it's a question. And this is what we'll wrap up with here. Would you describe for the court what the result of your experiment was? Yes, the result of my experiment. Your Honor, may I ask a preliminary question? Yes. Major Cicero, the experiment you conducted, I believe you drew some of your own BLOOD? Yes. Okay, you probably didn't do it. I think one of your friends? Yeah. And had a law enforcement phlebotomist draw my blood. So we used uh, his particular DNA for the experiment. Sage continues, and you put it in some containers. We had numerous vacuutainers that they were, yeah, put into. And you put your blood in the vacutainers. Was there any kind of anticoagulant or anything in those containers? No. No, it was just your blood. It was just my blood. I made sure that there was no anticoagulant. Ms. Ajay continues, okay, and do you know how your BLOOD compares to that of Libby and Abby? I do not. In terms of coagulation or type or anything like that, no. Do you take any medication, or did you when at the time you were drawing your blood? I am on medications. Yes, ma'am. I'm trying to be, I understand, polite. You understand where I'm going with this. I take supplements and I do the medication for hypertension. For hypertension. Hypertension. Okay. And do you know how your medication for the hypertension affects the coagulability, say that 10 times fast. That's a terrible word. Yes, it is. But you know what I'm saying, right? Of your BLOOD. It does not, he says. Okay. I have no other questions. Thank you. Have you conducted, now we're back to Mr. Luttrell for the prosecution asking the questions. Have you conducted experiments as a stain pattern and analysis expert in the past? Many. And have you used your own or that of colleagues in order to do the experiment, those experiments? Primarily, we use animal BLOOD in experiments. I had used mine before. We needed DNA right away to do the experiments because of time restraints. I think it means constraints. But blood, we have through studies, we have shown that blood still reacts in a predictable manner regardless of what kind it is. It has a certain viscosity, surface tension, cohesion, and again, it adheres to our physical laws. Whereas it's mine or whether it's mine or that of another, it will adhere, it will do the same thing, it will react the same to energy and forces applied to it. In your opinion, was what was that noise? I don't know. Something. I think my water bottle fell over. Sorry. All right. So, in your opinion, was the stain on the tree painted or applied deliberately in a fashion to create a pattern or symbol, or was it a pattern transferred onto the tree in a non-deliberate, non-painting fashion? I would object here. Based upon my observations and the results of the experiment, the best explanation for the pattern on the tree was a result of a transfer stain, not from painting. And what type of transfer stain and what type of action with what type of object did you find with the best explanation? That was a terrible question. From our experiments, and I'll briefly explain the experiments. We used many different parts of a hand from a test subject, applied different pressure, applied different amounts of the volume of BLOOD that was placed upon the hand and the test subject. We have found that the most, in comparison to the stain observed on the tree, that the test subject's hand would be palm facing the substrate or the tree with the pinky finger in an upward position, and this area of the hand created a stain that was very consistent with what we think was observed on the tree. So, a pinky finger in an upward position did the L or whatever, however, I don't know. All right, so you're pointing to the edge, not the edge of the palm, but the heel of the hand. But the edge of the palm. You're using your left hand, is that correct? We use the left hand. And the horizontal position, or in a sorry, my brain shuts off at a certain point. We use the left hand. And was it in a horizontal fashion? Yes, but it would be not the edge of the palm, it would be more of the meaty area of the palm, which left the similar results. So they were using like this part of their hand, I think. And how tall was the test subject that was used? She was 5 feet, 5'4", similar to the decedent. Similar to Libby's height. You did that intentionally? Yes. So they're trying to say Libby did it on accident because she was touching her wounds and made that L shape on the tree, or F. That's what I think they're trying to say here. Yes. And did you try painting on the tree? Yes, yes, I did. Would you describe that briefly to us? We tried painting with fingers and a stick. Obviously, we don't know if painting was a possibility, that what was utilized to paint what, but a logical conclusion it's fingers or a stick. It is possible to paint such an upside down L. We found it very difficult because it lacked the volume each and every time that we would try to apply. It would wipe it off our fingers, so we'd have to reapply several times in order to get the full pattern of this, if this was painted. So they don't think it was painted because they had to reapply. A person trying to paint that on the tree would have to keep going back to the source. Yes, some source, yes. And did you also, I think they drained her. Like I think they were drinking it. Like, to be quite honest. I mean, people do weird things. I think they probably put it in some kind of container. I mean, this is totally speculation. I have no idea where this is coming from other than it's my opinion. But I think they were doing like sacrificing it, drinking it, doing something with it. They probably collected it in something. That's my guess. Why there wasn't so much on the scene. I think they were collecting it in like a jar, a glass, whatever, and doing something with the blood. That's my opinion. All right. So, yes, some source. So, if they were doing that, they easily would have had it in a container and could have done it. And did you also observe any sign, any shape of a finger when you tried using a finger that was discernible to you as you looked at it? As it relates to the painting, when we would use a finger or two fingers, we could see the very edges of the fingers, the roundness of it, each and every time. As it pertains to a finger, going back to the tree, I believe that's what you're referring to. Yes, it would be noted approximately an inch or inch and a half, if I remember correctly. I don't have my notes with me. To the right of the upside down L, again, was another transfer stain that appeared to be a pattern. Oh, we didn't know about this. Either using the photograph with the chemical applied or another photograph, could you point to the judge? Yes. What you're talking about? Your Honor, in States Exhibit 34 and 35, the area that I'm referencing to is to the right. Is it okay if I see what he's... Yes, the court says. Um, oh, that was Baldwin asking what he was pointing to. He says, "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. Uh, Judge, it's okay if I don't know. Okay, they're trying to figure out what he's pointing to. So here's the upside down L, ma'am, sir, and this is the stain that I'm referring to right here, ma'am. And that's 34. In 35, ma'am, I'm referring to the stain that's here that was utilized, the stain that was crystal violet was applied to. So in that stain, we did testing as well for the particular stain, and we used digits, and we found that the portion of the thumb created a stain that was similar to what we observed in the photographs of what the investigators observed. So a thumb was like was most likely, if it was a finger, that was most likely the finger that was used. So the thumb made the most accurate duplication of the stain on the tree that you were talking about. That's just an inch or so from this L. Yes, and it was more of kind of the edge of the thumb, the meaty part of the thumb. He keeps talking about the meaty parts of your hand. Um, and the edge, not direct straight on. And we replicated this several times, and it may not have been the exact size or volume that was hard to replicate or pressure, but the shape of itself was very consistent with a certain portion of the test subject's thumb. Would this have been consistent? The stain that you see in the photograph on the tree, after examining those photographs and then conducting your experiments, was that stain that you observed on the tree consistent with LG's hand and her thumb hitting that portion of the tree while covered with her own blood? Yes. So again, they're trying to say she did that. So did she do the upside down L too? And did they all put sticks on themselves to make it look like runes? Massage objects. Speculation in that could have been anyone's hand unless he's got something from the actual body that he can compare it to. I think that's complete speculation. Mr. Luttrell says he's got a DNA report, Your Honor. Okay, overruled. Just because it's her DNA would show up in it if somebody else used their finger to wipe it there. So that doesn't matter that they have a DNA report. That's irrelevant. Ms. Jay agrees, but a DNA report, Your Honor, doesn't have measurements of LG's hands. Court says, I understand that. Overruled. What a freaking bitch. God, I can't stand a gall. Yes, it is consistent, he says, the witness says. And is that the best explanation for the stain pattern that you saw on the tree? That was the upside down L portion. That's the best explanation given the data and the observations I made. And if that happened, if LG's DNA came into contact with that tree and with her hand in the form that you described, and that hand was covered with BLOOD, would that explain all of what you saw, including the spatter, the downward flow of the L portion that you described? Yes. How? The spatter, I don't believe so. That could have been caused from another action. What I would expect to see with a spatter, if a hand that was contained a voluminous amount of blood struck the or made contact, we may see what's referred to as sensation cast off. We didn't see that. It's not by any means a great distance. It's just a few, maybe an inch away where we saw the spatter. We would expect to see maybe some directionality. However, bloodstains, especially spatter, is direct. There's a direct correlation between the substrate surface. The surface on the tree that was furrowed was rough, cratered, layered. This spatter may have been the result of another action that occurred maybe simultaneously or shortly prior to the contact. Again, it's just a small area. We're talking about a surface area that's curvature of a tree. There could have been spatter out there in the forest that was not located because it's hard to see, especially on a forested floor. You see small stains. Mr. Luttrell says, thank you. I have no further questions. Ms. Auger comes up for cross-examination of Major Patrick Cicero. And I want to take a sip of water first before she begins questioning. All right, questions by Ms. Auger to Major Patrick Cicero. So we know somehow there is a pool of blood near a tree, a large pool, right? Near a tree? Yes. No. No. There was a smaller accumulation near the tree. Oh, which pool are we referring to, ma'am? I'm sorry. Well, there are several large pools of LG's blood, correct? There is 3 smaller ones, accumulations, and there was one very large one. Okay, one very large one. Now, LG's neck had several cuts, correct? I believe there were 3. And would you agree with me, Major Cicero, that the individual cutting LG's neck, their hand, could also be covered in blood? It's very possible, yes. And probably likely? Depends on his actions. It's very possible that what he does and how she faces the assailant, what her actions are, her movement, moving away from him, the initial cut, if you will. I'm not sure which injury did it. So there's a lot of factors to automatically saying if I'm going to agree with you or not. Okay, now you said his hand. Why do you say his hand? Mistake. Okay, thank you. All right. A hand. All right. Now, you know that someone had blood on their hand and it was transferred to the tree. Yes, ma'am. In a pattern. Yes, ma'am. Okay. And one of the patterns is an upside down L, correct? Yes. Now, did you do any analysis of any other individual's hands? I don't understand, ma'am. Anyone else? Well, you picked an individual who was 5'4", correct? Yes, ma'am. And that is because LG was 5'4"? Yes, ma'am. And do you know how your subject's hand compared to that of LG's hand? I don't, ma'am, no. So you have no idea how similar at all those two hands might be? When you say similar, what characteristics are you referring to? In size. Correct. And then you didn't, for instance, have any idea about the size of, let's say, Brad Holder's hand. I'm not sure who that is, ma'am. Okay. I doubt that, but okay. So you were just limited to your test individual, is that correct? Yes. This experiment was merely a way to show that there's an alternative explanation other than painting. Okay, but if I want to make a pattern of an upside down L, I can recreate that with my hand, right? Yes. I can dip it in liquid, or my hand already has liquid on it, and put it on a tree. Yes. And you have no idea how the blood was transferred to the tree other than LG's DNA was transferred to the tree. Yes. Now, sir, if I could, you talked about LG, and I'm looking at page 5. It's kind of the end of the first paragraph of your report. Okay. And you said bloodstain evidence would indicate LG would have been stationary for some time at the location of the large pooling believed to be placard 3. Is that? Yes, ma'am. That's the large accumulation pooling. Okay. Can you show me what I've looked at, or what I've looked and I can find the placards? Can you show me on one of these exhibits where that pool is? Can you point that out? Sure, ma'am. I'm going to point it on States Exhibit 36. Okay, hold on. Let me get there. I see what you're saying. The State Exhibit 37 right here. Of course, it's the last one I look at. Sure, thank you. And you said her body was stationary for some time and then it was later moved to the vicinity of the pooling to her final location where she was discovered. Yes. Now, when you said later moved, that implies to me that someone else moved her. Yes, she didn't move herself. No. And in your experience, sir, have you ever had the occasion to move a dead body? Yes. How would you compare moving a dead body to someone who's alive? Is it more difficult? I think it all depends if I believe they'd probably be the same if the person is alive, is limp, and I'm supposed to move them. Are they fighting? I don't know. And how far do you think Liberty's body was moved? Well, whatever the distance was from that pooling area to her final location, whatever that may be, perhaps it was 7, 8 feet. I'm just looking at it. I don't know a context. I don't have the scale in there. And I'm going to show you. I didn't mark. I don't know which exhibit this is. Do you have that exhibit? 37. 37. Okay. Can you draw on there with the track of LG's where the track of LG's body went? I cannot with these photos. It's too difficult. Oh, so with the like a drag lines or something. Where was the track that they used? We'd have to have different photographs. Have you seen any photographs? Oh, I've seen all of them that show the exact path that her body took from the pooling to the tree. Yes. You can actually look in the photographs, and I believe it's 36, and see the trail as it moves around. That's his evidence. The trail moves around. You don't know where she was. Oh my God. Okay. So it appears to me that it is a direct path from here. Most likely her head would have been in the vicinity, head and neck would have been in the vicinity of the large pooling. So whomever would have done this would have pulled her, and as a result, the leg, the buttocks, the under the leg, the calf also came in contact with the blood and it drug through there, and which is indicative of the staining upon the leaves and the foliage, as well as the staining observed on the back of her leg. You also said that several of the flow patterns observed on LG's face were not consistent with her final positioning? Correct. Can you tell me what patterns those are? Well, those patterns are going across her chin, across her face, down her eye, that when you look at her final position, I believe her head is turned to the left, and that would not be consistent with the patterns that we observed on her face. Again, BLOOD is a fluid. Fluids travel to the path of least resistance. Gravity is a factor here, and so at some point her head was potentially turned. At some point, maybe her head was when she was. However, she was picked up. Her head was down. If you pick up a person who is limp, there because of gravity, the neck, the head would go back, and that would allow the blood flow pattern to occur. Alrighty. That was a really. These explanations as to the flow and the pattern, they're not scientific. Like, he's not, I don't know. It's, there's a lot of factors, a lot of different factors that come into play during these, and he's showing us that, um, I guess this is what he thinks happened, but there's too many factors and variants that I don't think he's taking into account. And this is the other thing too. It's like he's like, "Well, you can just see where her path was, the path that she went after she was injured to where her final resting spot." But no, you cannot. I don't I'm sorry. I don't like junk science. I don't think it should be used in courts today. DNA, even at this point, we don't know everything there is to know about DNA. So, it's become so sensitive now that you could have DNA at a crime scene that you never even went to, and the people that there you don't even know because of transferred DNA and how sensitive the tests are for DNA nowadays. It doesn't necessarily mean that you committed the crime. You have to look at all of the evidence. And how did Rick Allen get on the cops' radar, and how they're treating him? Look at all the times that they're trying to hide something, or they don't give up discovery easily. All right, let's move on. All right, so Major Cicero, I'm going to show you Defendant's Exhibit Triple U. Have you seen that photo before? Yes, it looks very familiar from all the photographs that I observed. Okay, it's probably not the best one to do this, but can you identify the flow pattern of her face that you believe has been altered? I don't believe anything's been altered, okay, on her face. On her body, there were alterations, but the flow patterns aren't consistent with her positioning. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay. And so at some point, her head was positioned differently with respect to the rest of the body. Her head would have, to be clear, the head would have had to have been in a different position where the blood would have flowed across the face in that manner. For her head to be like that and the blood not flow up her chin and over her face. The face and the neck would have had to have been at some point back and turned to create that. And you're talking about the blood flow on her right cheek, primarily her right cheek. But blood does not defy gravity, so on her cheek or on her chin and whatnot. All right, so Ms. Auger moves to admit the exhibit. The prosecution does not object. It is admitted. And then Nicholas McClellan butts in and says, "Judge." The court says, "And I'll seal it." Mr. McClellan says, "Sorry, yeah, can we make sure that's under seal, though?" "Yes, sir." "Okay, thank you, Judge." Now, upon moving to Abby Williams, "Yes, ma'am." Now, to be clear, you're getting all of this from photographs? Yes. Okay. And you said on the left side of Abby's neck, you observed what appeared to be coagulated and wet and dried blood? Yes. So, not all of the blood had dried on the side of her neck. The side of her neck, mostly in the hoodie sweatshirt area, it was protected. It was not dry as it would not dry as quick, especially accumulations. And the flow patterns on Abby's face are also not consistent with her final position. Yes, some of them were not correct. Now, page 7 of your report, you said there's no conclusion being made that AW was nude at some point on or about February 13th. You want to see it? I'm a visual person. Yeah, I am too. Yeah, thank you. Sure. Last sentence. She shows them his test or his report. He says, right, no conclusions are being made that she was completely nude. She could have been completely nude. Right, she could have had her pink shirt, gray brassiere, and black brassiere on at the time. I can't determine that. But he just testified that it was on. But would you agree with me at some point she was partially nude? Yes. Okay. You did not record, you did not video record your experiment. No. I'm sorry? You're fine, ma'am. What? Okay. Do you know what exhibit number is that? 37? Yeah, 37, ma'am. Okay, and Major Cicero, exhibit 37 is an aerial view of the bodies. Is that correct? Yes, I believe the investigator was on a ladder. Thanks. And can you estimate, with respect to, let's say, LG, what percentage of her body was covered by sticks? Maybe I'm bad at this, ma'am. I'm sorry. Maybe 3, 5%, 3%, maybe. I don't know. Maybe 3? Maybe 3. So not much. Not much. No, no. Okay. And with respect to Abby Williams, same question. What percentage of her body? Very small. Okay. So a very small percentage. And would you agree with me that there's a lot of leaves? Yes. In the area. Yes. All right. And there are other sticks in the area? There are. Okay, and if I want to cover a body, do you agree with me it would be much better to use the leaves and the sticks than sticks that cover maybe 3% of their body? I don't disagree. Major Cicero, would you agree with me, based on viewing the pictures and the crime scene, viewing the girl's injuries, it would be safe to say there was a lot of chaos out there? I would agree with that. And it would be, given that, it would be impossible to actually recreate what happened. Given the data, yes. I have no further questions. Mr. Luttrell, says Judge Gull. So now there we have a redirect examination from Mr. Luttrell. Have you seen sticks on bodies at homicide scenes before? Yes. More than once? Yes. And have you seen sticks used as a sort of grid or a pattern for putting other objects on? Yes. Bodies. Would you explain what you've seen? However, the person who did it would have, covered the person. They would put it on the side, sticks across the center and diagonal, almost building a bridge for the other sticks. The idea of concealment is to break up the pattern. And I've seen that before where they use sticks and leaves to cover up the body. Without fully covering up the body, yeah, to try to fully cover up the body, and it never, obviously, the bodies were found, they didn't do a good job. That didn't answer the question, nor, okay, nothing further. Ms. Auger has a recross, so let's go. Have you seen bodies that were buried? Yes, I work at the University of Tennessee in training. I bury bodies all the time and dig them up. It's part of the training. It's the entomology and forensic anthropology. And the other bodies that you have seen that had sticks and leaves, were they more covered or more concealed than the bodies of Liberty and Abigail? Blah. My brain just was like, what's her name? I can think of it. Because I don't always say Liberty. I usually try to say Libby. I don't know why Liberty just comes out. It's kind of a cool name, Liberty. Anyways, the ones that in my real life cases, yes, they had more sticks on them. Why there were not more sticks on this, I don't know. Well, maybe because it wasn't to conceal them, as you have speculated, sir. And she has no more questions. That is it. So he can step down. So now let's read First Sergeant Christopher Cecil. This is the same day, the same hearing, just different person. Okay, so now Nicholas McClelland is going to be doing the questioning for this first. Sorry, I gotta readjust. All right, First Sergeant Christopher Cecil being questioned by Nick McClelland. Officer, will you state your name, please? Christopher Cecil. And would you spell it? He does. And how are you employed? I'm employed with the Indiana State Police. And what is your rank currently? I am a first sergeant. So, First Sergeant Cecil, how long have you been employed with the Indiana State Police? Almost 20 years. And did you go through special training and schooling to be a law enforcement officer? Yes, I did. And do you continue to go through yearly training to keep updated on current laws, policy, those kinds of things? Yes, sir. And what is your current assignment? So, I'm the commander of the Indiana Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And throughout those duties, do you have an occasion to take cellular phones or electronic devices and what we refer to as dump them, which means take the contents of those devices and examine that information? Yes. And is that something that you routinely do? Not routinely anymore since I'm the task force commander, but I did prior to that position. So currently you're the first sergeant who is working on the new analysis of Libby's phone. That's correct? But you've done an analysis prior to this one, correct? Yes. Tell me about when did you do the prior one? I did the prior one in 2019. Okay, and that one's complete? Yes. So you decided to do a new analysis of it. Why? New tools, and then also technologies changed. So this was done in 2019. We're in 2024. And I know from experience that forensic software updates and gets better and can find things. But the analysis for 2022, you did draft a report for that analysis. Is that correct? You mean 2019? I'm sorry. Yes, 2019. Thank you. Yes. And that report has been turned over to defense. Is that correct? Yes. And so I'm going to focus on that report mainly. Through that report, were you able to determine that there was a video on Libby's phone taken on the Monon High Bridge on the day of the homicides? Yes. And the video is the famous video that we know that has Bridge Guy in it. Is that correct? That's correct. And it's also the famous video where Bridge Guy says, down the hill. Is that correct? Correct. And so that is the point where Abby and Libby are abducted from the Monon High Bridge, correct? My understanding, yes. Okay, what I want to know specifically is what is the time that video was taken? So referring to my report here, let me establish foundation for that. Go ahead. Go ahead, says the witness. And do you have, what do you have in your hand? So I have a case report. And is that case report one that you drafted? It's one that I drafted. And was it drafted after the analysis of Libby's phone in 2019? Yes. And is it your report? This is my report. And do you believe that it's accurate? Yes. Well, of course, if you create it, you're going to think so. Even if you did something wrong that you don't know you did. And actually, it says Defendant's Exhibit 1 at the bottom. Is it something that was admitted in your deposition? Yes, on May 15th. Okay, and would it help you to refer to this report to refresh your recollection? Yes. Mr. McClelland says, Judge, I'd ask the court to allow the witness to refer to the report to refresh recollection on the details of the timestamp of the video. Court says you may. Questions. First, Sergeant Cecil, can you take a look at that report and tell me the time, if you can find it, when the video started on the Monon High Bridge? So the video starts on February 13th, 2017 at 14:13 or 2:13 p.m. And was there a location or GPS location associated with that video? So when the video initially starts, the GPS geolocates kind of over near the Delphi High School, but then within a matter of seconds, it comes back to the Monon Trail. That's where it goes. And there were pictures on the Monon High Bridge Trail taken before the video, is that correct? Yes, sir. And you were able to recover those pictures? Yes. And those pictures have GPS coordinates with them, is that correct? The pictures don't, but there are when Snapchat's being used, there are GPS locations when Snapchat's being used. And so there are pictures taken throughout Snapchat, and you're able to get a GPS location through Snapchat of those pictures? Yes. And they show that the pictures were taken on the Monon High Bridge as well? Yes. And you were able to examine the pictures in the video, is that correct? Yes. And in the picture, or in both the picture and the video, does it portray or does it show Abby Williams? Yes. And is she wearing the same clothing? Yes. And so you're confident the video is taken at the same location and time of the picture prior to it? Yes. Okay. And again, give me the time of that video. Oh, the time of that video, it starts at 12:13:51 on February 13th. And when does it end? It ends 43 seconds later at 12:14:34. And when you're able to track movement on the phone after that, is that correct? Correct. And that is through the internal functioning or the internal GPS of the phone? Well, it has to do with the Apple Health data. Okay, and you're able to track. So you're able to track movement of that phone. Right. I'm not tracking GPS. I don't know where the phone went. I'm tracking just movement. Yes. And at some point, does the phone stop moving? Yes. When is that? So the phone stops moving, same time, February 13th, 2017, 14:32:39. So 2:32 p.m.? Correct. And through your analysis, have you been able to tell, did the phone move after that time? No, it did not. And do you know how long did the phone stay on? My understanding from my explanation, I'm currently still in the process on, it stayed on until sometime after 4:30 in the morning on February 14th. And so from 2:32 p.m. until 4:30 a.m. on February 14th, the phone never moved? Correct. Or you could turn it off or on or whatever. It almost seems like her phone may have been turned off and on or put in airplane mode or some kind of mode, whatever, where it might have been, they might have shut it down so that no one could contact her, taken her phone away, put it on airplane mode or whatever mode, turn it off. Maybe they thought they destroyed it. I don't know, but something. I think somebody did something to the phone. I don't think that 2:30 were their last movements either. I think their phone was taken from them, which is the other alternative, you know. They took the phone from the girls instead of, oh, obviously it means that's when their last moments were, according to the law enforcement detectives. All right, and do you know where the phone was ultimately found? My understanding, it was found underneath one of the girls. Okay, just a moment, Judge. Judge, I don't have any other questions. All right, Ms. Auger. Thank you, Your Honor. Questions by Ms. Auger. Now, First Sergeant Cecil, how do I refer to you? You can call me First Sergeant Cecil. Okay, first, Sergeant Cecil. Now you said earlier that girls were abducted at 2:14 on the 13th, correct? I didn't say that they were abducted. I just said that this is the video happened. Okay, you have no idea if the girls met someone that they knew or what happened at 2:14 when the video ended, correct? I only know what's on the phone. Sure. So you can't say that they were or were not abducted. I can't say anything. You're right. Okay. Now, the ability to track movement on the phone you said came from Apple Health data? Yes, ma'am. Okay. And the Apple Health data, does it show LG's phone leaving from LG's home to do you have a map? Okay, did Apple Health show LG's phone moving from her home over to the location where they got out of the car and walked into the Monenhigh Bridge? I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. Well, you said that the cell phone tracks movement, correct? Correct. And it shows movement when people walk? Yes. It doesn't necessarily show movement if you're in a vehicle traveling down the road, correct? The only way it could is if for some reason it would detect movement as if like you would jump it or bump it. Right. Okay. So it doesn't show any movement of LG's phone leaving from her home to the trail that day when they were in the vehicle, correct? And you're referring to the Apple Health data? Correct. Yes. No, it doesn't. Pardon? It does not. The Apple Health does not. Okay, because it doesn't necessarily pick up if you're in the car unless something kind of significant happens. Is that right? Right, like if you hit a bump or something, yes. Okay, are you familiar with the area around the south end of the Monon High Bridge? No, ma'am. I've never been there. I only know what I've seen on the news reports. Okay, are you aware that between the south end of the Monon High Bridge and the location where the bodies were found, there is an access road? I did not know that. And the Apple Health data, the number of steps and the distance could have gotten those girls to somewhere on that access road. Is that correct? Not necessarily. He says not necessarily, but it could have. But it's not wrong, it's not right. It's you just don't know. Correct. You're right. I don't know. It's a possibility. Possibility. Now, would you agree with me, Sergeant Cecil, that different information is transmitted to an iPhone by different measures? Does that make sense? No, ma'am, I'm sorry, it doesn't. Your Honor, I was told that Mr. Cecil that he was going to be dismissed. Can I have a minute to find an exhibit that we had put away? Sure. I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'm sorry, my exhibits were put away. So a little first, Cecil, Sergeant Cecil. I'm going to show you what I've marked as Exhibit QQQ, which is a hand-drawn map of the areas where the bodies were found. And if you can see this area right here, yes, ma'am, and we can highlight that is an access road. And would the Apple Health data get the girls somewhere on the access road? Do you know? Like on a specific point? Are you asking me like a GPS point? Any point. If they walked this distance and this many steps, they could have ended up on this access road, correct? So Apple Health data doesn't track GPS. No, it doesn't. I'm not asking you for a location. I'm saying if we start the number of steps that you measured, mm-hmm, have you measured any of those steps? No, I haven't. Really? Okay. I mean, I don't know I don't know which girl could have been carrying the phone because, sure, as I mentioned in my deposition, oh, hold on, we're going to have some noise. And we're back. My friend's home. So that's a disruption. Sorry. All right. So, no, he never measured any of the steps. Okay. I mean, I don't know I don't know which girl could have been carrying the phone because, sure, as I mentioned in my deposition, if you're carrying my phone and then you give it to me, you may walk different steps than I do because I may be a little bit taller than you and have a different stride than you. Seriously, that's what you're gonna say why you didn't measure the steps? Okay, sure. Either way, you could have tested it with people of both Abby and Libby's stature to see. Sure. And the steps are more accurate than the actual distance that the iPhone reports. Would you agree with that? I'm not sure. I've got the down in my notes, but I can't recollect that right now off the top of my head. Okay. Miss Auger, yes, she must have pronounced, oh, maybe he pronounced it like Augier. I don't know. And then she corrected how he pronounced it. Yes, he says, I apologize. No, you're fine. It's a tough one. To answer your question, from my research preparing for this other examination, both of them are going to be correct according to research that's been done by other police officers write paper on this, who wrote a paper on this. Okay, so the distance will be as accurate as the number of steps. From this research that's been done by another law enforcement officer out of Europe, because I have the paper, it's part of my research that I've done for this examination. Okay, and just to be clear, your testimony is that the distance traveled will be as accurate as the number of steps. I'm just telling you what I've learned. I'm not saying that I know for a fact. I don't know for a fact. Okay. And would you agree with me, hearkening back to your testimony 2 minutes prior, if one individual has a different stride, correct, than another, then this number of steps will be different than the distance traveled? Correct. Now, your gray key report that you did in 2019 or your report that you did in 2019, do you recall that? You mean my written report? Your written report, okay? It was admitted as an exhibit. It's labeled Defendant's I. But I don't, Your Honor, do you have the exhibit? No. The Gray Key report? No. No, it was not admitted as an exhibit. Oh, okay. I don't have it. First Sergeant Cecil, I'm going to show you what has been marked as Defendant's RRR. Okay, what is that? Let me look through it. So, this is my written report, my digital forensics report that I wrote back in 2019. And you paid a lot of attention to that, given the fact that this is a double homicide, right? Yes. I'm sure you give attention to everything you do. Yes. And if you could, please look at page 10, the last line. Yes, ma'am. Well, I want to back up to the middle of the page first. There is, in all caps, it says LG. There's a little notation there. I don't know what is 38A158. You see that? Yeah, the LG tilde 38. Yes, ma'am. I don't know what that means. Tilde, thank you. And what did you note there? Sorry, hydration break. My mouth's getting dry. It's a picture of the Monon High Bridge, and it's a picture that was uploaded to Snapchat. And the picture is like just somebody would be standing like in front, like you're getting ready to walk across it. There are a lot of likes in there. I'm going to show you what's marked as Defendant's Exhibit Triple S. Okay. And that is the photo. Is that the photo you're referring to? It's not this exact one because it's got that written up there on it. Okay. Right? All right. Is there a phone or a picture that you have learned of that? Hold on, my dog's making noise. All right. Is there a phone or a picture that you have learned of that you could not find on LG's phone? Yes. What was that? That was a picture of Abby, walking across the bridge, and it's kind of taken off of an angle. And that was posted on her Snapchat account. So my understanding from social media is that's what it was, and I was asked to try to see if I could find that by the investigators. And you could not find it? I could not find it. Now, if we go back to page 10 at the last line of your report, yes, what did you say? So the last line on February 13th, 2017, at 22:32:26, I wrote, Last recorded data received by iPhone and iPhone battery was likely depleted. And what was the last data you mean was received? I'm looking at the data for that day, and this, as I testified in my deposition, this was a mistake. I made a mistake. I didn't calculate other things. I wasn't looking into February 14th. Okay. But even if we don't look, so what you're saying now today, when you said May 15th, is that you don't believe the phone's battery was likely depleted? Right. Okay, but did you also make a mistake when you said last recorded data received by iPhone? Yes, I did. Okay. Did you, s- when you said that, what data were you referring to? If you look at the next page right here, where I talk about, it says, after the phone, it stopped recording. Excuse me. Yeah, it continued to function, meaning it's still powered on. I found no evidence the user physically interacted with the phone. The phone continued to receive iMessages, SMS messages, FaceTime calls, mobile calls, and other similar communication. In addition, several applications updated in the background. The activity continued until the phone battery was depleted. That's what I put in there. That's what I was referring to. Okay. And were you referring to a particular piece of data that you believed the phone received at 22:32? I do not remember. I don't know. Would you agree with me that an iPhone receives data in different ways or messages in different ways? That's a very broad, you're going to have to narrow it down. Okay, well, so if an iPhone receives an SMS message, right? That is a short message service. Do you agree? Yes. Okay. And that's transmitted by a cell tower, is that right? I don't know a whole lot about cell towers, how that is coming there. Okay. Could it be you testified to that in your deposition? Oh, he did. So could He says, so it could come from a cell phone tower, it could come from Wi Fi, there's other things it could come from. Okay, how does an iMessage get to a phone? It could come from over the cellular or I think may mean network, the cellular network. It could come from the internet. So if you're connected to Wi-Fi, if you don't have a cell phone service, if you're on Wi-Fi, you can get an iMessage. Okay. Is it your belief that LG's phone was connected to Wi-Fi between 5:44 on February 13th and 4:33 a.m. on February 14th? No. And if it's not connected to Wi-Fi, the only way it can receive an SMS message is through a cell tower, correct? Yes. Okay, and do you agree with me if LG's cell phone received 0 SMS messages between 4:06 p.m. on February 13th and 4:33 a.m. on February 14th, 2017? I would have to look at that. I can't. Okay, we talked about that in your deposition. Right, but recall that. I vaguely recall it. Okay, what do you need to look at? I can pull up my computer and okay, look if the judge is okay with that. Judge says that's fine. I may take a bit it may take a bit for me to pull up the report, but yes. Sergeant Cecil, do you have the copies of your report? Do you want your triple R back? That was the exhibit. Yes, while we're waiting on you, yes. Ms. Auger says, Your Honor, I'd go ahead and admit defendant's exhibit triple R, which is his 2019 report. Any objection? No. All right, admitted. Ms. Auger says, Thank you. All right, we're back. So he says, Okay, ma'am, I have my computer up right now. Ms. Auger continues her questioning. And can you tell me how many SMS messages did the phone receive between 4:06 p.m. and 4:33 a.m. on the 13th and 14th? So 4:33 and 4, I'm sorry? And attorney James Luttrell says, what was the first time? 4:06 p.m. on the 13th and 4:33. Yes. So there's nothing at 4:06, but at 4:33, from what Magnet is showing, that there is an SMS message or 9 messages as it's referring to. And then it's the same one. There's two of the same ones here. There's another one at 4:33. There's one at 4:33:37, 4:33:38, 4:33:39, blah blah blah. Okay. There's multiple SMS messages at 4:33, but it at different seconds throughout that message. So you're telling me that all these people just simultaneously texted Libby at the very exact same time, just a second apart? Okay, sure. That's what you're asking. There's 15 of them, isn't there? Some of these may be duplicated, but because it'll show up as an iMessage and it may also show up as an SMS, so it may be the same person. Okay, there's the messages on your report that are marked SMS. How many of them are there at 4:33? So AM on 2:14, 17. Yes, okay. Are you counting the duplicates? This guy's frustrating. Are there notes on 2:13 that show up as an SMS message? 2:13 or 2:14? Oh my God, I'm gonna shoot this guy. I'm sorry. You're confusing me, ma'am. Did I say 2:13? Yes, ma'am. I meant 2:14. I mean, I'll tell you what. Let me do this. I'm going to show you defendant exhibit triple T. Okay? Does that help you? That is from the Cellbrite extraction. Whose Cellbrite extraction is this one? Is this mine or Brian Bunner's? That is 2017. Okay. I'm not going to be familiar with this. Okay, if it doesn't help you, that's fine. I mean, I can look at it, but I'm just saying I'm not familiar. I won't be familiar with this. I'll compare it. Mr. McClelland says, Judge, if it helps things, the state's willing to concede that there were messages that came in at 4:33 a.m. on February 14th, and the court can consider that. If that helps move things along, I'm satisfied with that, Judge. I don't know that specific number matters, but the state's willing to agree that messages came in at 4:33 a.m. on February 14th. Ms. Auger says, I think the number's important, Your Honor. The court says, okay. She says, I'm sorry. And the witness says, so I'm looking at this with Magnet, okay, and then there's one call that Magnet has not parsed, so whatever program they're using is called Magnet. I'm not looking at it with Cellbrite. Okay, and I can show you which one that is. Which one is it? It's number 3. When I think it says Becky Patty Marchand? I don't know. For some reason, that entry is not here. Again, this is the reason why you got to use multiple forensic tools, because to put everything together. I've got only one of them open right now. Cellbrite takes a little bit to load on my computer. Magnet's pretty fast, so I'm trying to be efficient here for the court, but these other ones are fine. We're here. Okay, and does that perhaps? So if we look at defendant's exhibit triple T, yes, that shows 15 SMS messages on LG's phone, but you're saying you think the number 3 didn't go through for some reason, and in fact, the box is blank and it says, what does it say there? Unknown? So what I'm saying is Cellbrite may have parsed it, because again, you're going off something that I didn't do, but actually when I'm looking at it with a completely different separate tool, it's not showing it here. So I would have to pull up Cellbrite and compare it and see if Cellbrite parsed it. How about this? Can we agree, First Sergeant Cecil, that LG's phone received at least 14 SMS messages at 4:33 a.m. on the 14th? My God, why is this so hard? He says, yes, finally. Really? Like, it shouldn't take that long. Okay. And you agree with all of the 4:33 SMS messages at the top of the page, other than perhaps line number 3? What are you asking when I say I agree? You agree that LG's phone received all the text messages that this document shows other than on 2/14/2017, other than perhaps the one line item number 3. Yeah, number 3 I would have to do more analysis, but yeah, that's what the software is showing. Okay, thank you. Now, what was the last SMS message received by LG's phone on February 13th? From what cell? Excuse me, from what magnet is showing here is on February 13th at 22:48 or 10:48 p.m. was the last SMS message. Okay, would you agree with me that defendant's exhibit triple T does not show that SMS message? It's only one page. So, I mean, those are would you agree with me, sir, that those are in chronological order? They're in reverse chronological order, but okay, yes. All right. And if you look at triple T, what is the time of the last SMS message to the phone? Here it shows here it shows it's actually February 13th at 4:47 p.m. Thank you. Move to admit exhibit triple T with no objection. It is admitted. Ms. Auger continues her questioning. So your data is even different than Brian Bunner's data from 2017, is that right? Yes, but I don't know why. I'm sorry, you're the expert. You're supposed to know why. I mean, shouldn't you be able to explain why? He doesn't know why. Okay. I'm sorry, I read it wrong. He says he does know why. Uh, I swear to God. And then it said, I don't know why. But he does. Okay, he does. So why? Because Brian Bunner, after he did his exam several days later or weeks later, he connected to the network to do an iCloud dump of LG's phone, which would have automatically brought some of this data here. This is the reason why this is here. I really have a problem with these so-called experts that come on the stand and try to refute Cellbrite data and say, well, it didn't really happen at this time, it's actually this time. Well, then what is the point of the data extraction? If, like, for instance, the House long to die in cold for the whole Karen Reed case, they say the Cellbrite says it happened at 2:27 a.m. She says it doesn't, the person who Googled it. Well, of course, she's going to say she didn't because she has something to gain by not having searched it. And so they find experts that aren't really experts that come on the stand and they're like, well, it does say this, but this is the reason why. And it's like some stupid reason like this. Some iCloud dump would have automatically brought it over to a different spot. That makes no sense. I'm not tech savvy, but if the report to extract the info is wrong, the one that, we convict millions of people on in this country, then what are we doing this for? I mean, seriously. Okay. So Brian Bunner, after he did his exam several days later or weeks later, he connected to the network to do an iCloud dump of LG's phone, which would have automatically brought some of this data there. This is the reason why this is here. That makes no sense to me. I think that is a horrible explanation. So you do a data dump, you do a recovery of data, and it puts it in the wrong time frame. So then how can you trust any time that comes out of any of these reports? I just don't get it. So now you have different software that analyzes this data, right? Yes. Okay. And let's go back to the SMS messages. Those are timestamped by the phone as of the time that they are received by the phone, correct? What Magnet and Cellbrite are doing is they're pulling as if you look right here. So that's my question. It's pulling it as it's how it's sent. Not my question. Okay. When an SMS message appears on a cell phone, it appears timestamped as if the time it's as of the time that it's received by the cell phone, correct? No. I just had my phone in airplane mode and received a text message and it was sent. I received it. When I opened it up, it showed me when my daughter sent it to me. An SMS message, an iMessage. Okay, those are different, right? same thing. No, okay, an iMessage is timestamped as of the time it's sent, correct? It goes through the Apple server, goes through the internet, and those are timestamped as of the time that they're sent, correct? When they're sent from, if you're texting me and you're sending me a text, yes, when you're sending it to me. Wow. Okay. And I want to be clear because there are lots of different things that people talk about as text messages. So you got SMS messages, right? And that you earlier testified are transmitted through the tower if LG's phone is not connected to Wi-Fi, correct? Right. Then you have iMessages, chats, Facebook. Those are all transmitted through a server, correct? They can come through the tower because you're on internet. And Mr. McClellan says, Judge, can I object at this point? And I guess, can Ms. Auger give me an offer of proof or show me how this is relevant to whether or not a third party can be talked about at the trial? The state called him just to establish the time of the video to cover the alibi of Mr. Holder and the other people. Well, that's exactly why, because he's here for Mr. Holder, so she can get into this stuff and the other people that they want to name as a third party. When you receive a text message, I guess I don't see the relevance. Ms. Auger, of course it matters how these text messages are coming for any of the people, any of the suspects involved, how their phones might receive it, how the girls' phones receive it. It matters how, to give us a timeline as to when the girls might have been abducted, taken, when the crimes actually occurred. Were they abducted and held for a while? Like that's something that we don't know. And if we had an honest and accurate person giving us the cell phone data, then maybe we would know a little bit better. But we've got officers who have a vested interest in protecting their the police department. So the state called him just to establish the time of the video. Um, I don't see the relevance. Okay. Ms. Auger says, Your Honor, the relevance is, and I think that Mr. First Sergeant's gonna get there, is it's in his deposition if we need it. An SMS message is time-stamped as of the time it's received by the phone, and an iMessage, a chat, is time-stamped as of the time it's sent by the other phone. And so the relevance is, even though people were sending LG text SMS messages, she did not receive those until 4:33 in the morning, meaning her phone is not connected to a tower between 5:45 and 4:30 on the 13th. And then it's suddenly connected at 4:33 a.m. on the 14th. And the expert says I would agree with that. Ms. Auger says, and so the relevance is okay. I would agree with that, yes. Oh, thank you. Ms. Auger says to the court, and so the relevance is something changed at 4:33 in the morning to make that cell phone. The court interjects her and says, well, why don't you get to that specific point then? She says, well, I'm sorry. She says, you're dancing around the field here because I'm wondering as well, what does this have to do with the third party perpetrators that you are alleging? But they're also talking about the geofencing, are they not? So doesn't this also give us an idea as to when the girls' phones were by the tower? Okay. So Ms. Auger says, okay, well, earlier I believe it was Jerry Holman that testified that they have no evidence that Mr. Allen went back to the crime scene after maybe 3:30, and that phone, it was under LG's shoe, under AW's body, according to the state, didn't move after 3:30. The court says, okay. Ms. Auger says, okay, and our point is that something changed at 4:33 in the morning that it's suddenly connected to the tower. And this witness can answer that for you. She says he just did. Okay, then move on. Thank you. Wow. This judge sucks. Judge Gull, everybody. All right, so first, Sergeant Cecil, in 2019, when you first conducted your examination of the phone, what did you know about the crime? He says, I knew two girls from Delphi had went out on the trail, went for a walk, and then there was a video apparently was recorded of what was believed to be the last person that saw them, and then eventually later on they were found uh, with their lives taken. What I know about it was from what I read on the news because I was never given access to the report, never read the police report. Did you have an understanding of the relevant time frame that you were to review in your examination? Yes, I was there to look to see if there was anything that would help identify like why they were out there on the trail, if they were meeting someone, anything like that. So it is then fair to say you were only looking at data prior to 2:14 p.m. on February 14th. Prior to 2:14, yes. Now, can you tell the court about Knowledge C, the database? So, Your Honor, Knowledge Base or Knowledge C is a data, and then Mr. McClellan. Judge, I'm going to object again. I'm not sure what she can make an offer to prove. I don't see what the relevance is of talking about Knowledge C in terms of third-party perpetrators. Ms. Auger says, Your Honor, we'll withdraw it. I think we have what we need. The court says, okay. Ms. Auger says, and I'll just let Mr. Baldwin make his argument and save the rest for trial. And she says, okay. Any redirect? No. And First Sergeant, what's his name? Cecil? Christopher Cecil is relieved from his uh, testimony, his time on the witness stand. All right. So last, we're going to talk, or we're going to read through this Roland Purdy, Detective Roland Purdy, who we had testimony from him in the very first video, I want to say. I can't remember because I recorded it a while ago. It was one of the first videos where we had Detective Purdy talking, but he came back for day 3. So again, we've got the same people, and we're going to have Attorney Nicholas McLeland doing the questionings, Trooper Purdy sworn in, and questions by McLeland. Would you state your name, please? Roland Richard Purdy. And how are you employed? I'm a detective with the Indiana State Police. And how long have you been with the Indiana State Police? 28 years. And what is your current role with the Indiana State Police today? I work Organized Crime and Corruption Unit. And you've testified about this case, I think, on Tuesday. Is that correct? Yes. So at some point in your career, you were involved with the investigation into the homicides of Abby Williams and Liberty German. Is that right? Yes, I was. And you testified on Tuesday that one of the persons you looked into was Brad Holder? Yes. Is that correct? Okay. And I tried to find, Trooper, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit SS. Do you recognize that? Yes. And you testified earlier. You testified, I believe, on Tuesday that you believe the impression was from Brad Holder's Facebook page. Yes. Did you actually look at Brad Holder's Facebook page? I would have seen the picture in the file, and I did look at Brad Holder's Facebook page, but I'm not sure if I don't remember if I saw it on Brad Holder's Facebook page, but I know you don't recall if you saw that photo on Brad Holder's Facebook page. I don't recall if I saw it on his actual Facebook page. And I'm asking because Brad Holder denies posting that picture, even seeing that picture before. You understand that? Yes. And so at the time and through the investigation, this was in the Brad Holder file. You can't recollect today whether or not that was actually on Brad Holder's Facebook page? That's correct. I don't have any other questions, Judge. Okay, Mr. Baldwin, Mr. Rosie, and Baldwin stands up and says, That's me. Cross-examination of Detective Roland Purdy by Andrew Baldwin. So when I deposed you last August and I asked you when you were looking into Brad Holder for the period of time that you did you see that image? And that's the image we're talking about on his Facebook page. And your answer was yes. Yes. So now you changed your mind? I wasn't sure. Seriously? So you were definitive in your yes before, and now you're saying that you didn't see, you're not sure if you saw it or not. That picture was in his file, and it's a Facebook picture, and I assumed it was from Brad Holder's Facebook page. I didn't ask, did you see that image somewhere on a file on his with his from his Facebook page? It was specifically, did you see the image somewhere on his Facebook page? And did you agree with me? I would have given you the opportunity for you to say at that time, well, I don't know if it's in his Facebook page or not, or if I saw it on the file, right? Yes. So your answer then was yes, I saw it on his Facebook page? Yes. And now that image is creating a little problem for you, your mind has changed? I guess I assumed it was his Facebook page because it was with his other Facebook photos. I've made my, so then I questioned myself. Yes, I've made my point. I don't have any other questions, Judge. Thank you. All right, Detective Purdy is released from the stand. And that is where we're going to leave it for today. In the final part of this ever everlasting 3-day trial, we're going to read through uh, Jerry Holman again. He's on the stand one more time briefly for as he's the lead investigator. He's going to come in and talk a little bit. The defense is going to be asking the questions, like I said, for both Holman, and Dawn Perlmutter is the other um, witness that we're going to hear from, and she is very interesting because she has an Odinist, like Odinism cults and things. She's an expert in that, so she is going to talk very much about how the crime scene has Odinist like qualities. She's going to explain how it could be perceived that way. So it's going to be an interesting one. That one I'm looking forward to the most, I think. So I'm saving the best for last. So make sure you are subscribed, hit the like button, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Love you guys. Take care. Bye now.